A historically good start for St. Louis Football Club, and they're home again at Worldwide Technology Soccer Park in Fenton. It's boot and slicker weather, 43 degrees and rainy, as the Charlotte Independents look for their first win under new head coach Jim McGinnis. St. Louis looks to pick up points 8, 9, and 10 of the year. Today's match brought to you by the Cheshire Inn, and with Devin Kerr, Mike Watts on hand. Devin, you think about what's made St. Louis so good so far, it's that they're scoring off dead ball scenarios.
Love them in the dead ball situations, and a lot of teams around the league have really taken notice to what went on in the 2018 World Cup. They've gone to the training ground, and they're much more efficient. But for St. Louis, it's more than that. It's efficiency in general in the final third. Last year, fantastic on the defensive side of things, but really weren't able to explore once they got over half line. The attrition rate just has gone down a bit, and now they look so good. They look deadly coming into the final third. Doesn't help to have the likes of Joaquin Rivas and Caleb Calvert in addition. They were done so good for themselves. Rivas back in the starting 11 tonight.
For Charlotte, they just played maybe the game of the year in week 3, and the staff, well, they felt like their guts had been ripped out.
Yeah, philosophically, a stark difference from what we saw in 2018. They've been pressing high on the defensive side of things. They've also learned to explore in the final third as well. Much more impressive, but the problem is you know, there's no regularity to it at this point in time. You've got some big names. Jorge Herrera was able to get the go-ahead goal, but then they gave up a late goal, and they need to find a way on a regular basis to put this whole package together. Sample size is small, only a few games, but as they go on the road, this is a good time to do it. Look at the late game traumatics in years past compared to this year. So on the defensive side of things, they've started to really clamping up, and that's nice, but you can't give up those early mistakes. On the offensive side, need to find a way to find guys like Dominic Oduro, Enzo Martinez, even the overlapping runs of the outside backs, get them involved early. It's too little, too late eventually.
So Charlotte trying to pull off a solid game on the road, get back on the win column. They missed the playoffs for the first time in the last 2 years last season. While St. Louis is off to a historic start, does it continue today? We're going to find out next.
This year we developed Ale d'Or, which is a beer brewed exclusively for the St. Louis Football Club. We've been partners with STLC for coming up on 3 years now. St. Louis Football Club got some Schlafly, call out our Luligan friends on the side. You'll be able to find Ale d'Or obviously out at Soccer Park and then at your local grocery in and around St. Louis, so we're really excited to get it out there in the market. We're excited to debut it in 16-ounce cans for the upcoming season.
When you need quality electrical work for your home or business, look to theelectricalconnection.org. Created as a partnership between IBEW Local 1 electricians and the St. Louis chapter of the National Electrical Contractors Association, the Electrical Connection has been setting the standard for electrical excellence in St. Louis for over 100 years. You can depend on our highly skilled and trained workforce, your #1 source for quality electrical and communication contractors, electricalconnection.org.
A lottery ticket is so much more than a piece of paper. It's wonder, opportunity, dreams. And not just for players. 100% of the profits from every Missouri lottery ticket you play goes back to schools, teachers, and students. Play it forward with the Missouri Lottery.
Tonight, St. Louis FC Academy Spotlight player is Souley Moussa. Souley arrived in St. Louis when he was just 10 years old. He played in men's rec leagues and pickup games, but did not join a club until his under-18 season. It's hard to imagine a player with such raw talent did not play club soccer until just 2 years ago. But that's exactly what this young man did. Souley plans to continue developing his attributes and will likely move on to play Division I college soccer. Souley Moussa is tonight's St. Louis FC Academy Spotlight.
Tonight's match is presented by Westport Social, and we welcome you into the latest and greatest, the start of a Saturday, week number 4 in the USL Championship. Charlotte and St. Louis set to meet in moments with Devin Kerr, Mike Watts. And we take a look at tonight's starting lineups. They're brought to you by Westport Social. We begin with St. Louis FC, a group that really only makes changes due to international duty, guys coming home.
Anthony Pulis making 3 changes here. Kyle Gregg is going to get the nod up top next to Caleb Calvert. Cicerone's going to sit down on the left. Joaquin Rivas, he could be an X factor for this team on the offensive side of things. He's one of those ones back from international duty. Keep an eye on Guy Ben next to Lewis Hilton in the middle of the field. Oscar Umar down with an ankle injury, but next to Lewis Hilton, he is the main man. He's tonight's player to watch. He's brought to you by Slicer. And his ability to impose his will on a match on a regular basis, especially through the first 3 games that we've seen. It's the reason that he's one of the most vocal guys. It's the reason that he's one of the guys they look to on a regular basis, both personally and professionally. He leads this team from back to front. They'll go to him regularly. Jim McGinnis and his squad, no changes whatsoever. Not surprised, though. Again, they looked really good in the final 20 minutes of the game. And to be fair, what they did versus Atlanta United 2 was impressive all match. They just need to tighten it up a bit. Again, it's a new system, new philosophy. They like to get the outside backs involved. Unfortunately, no Joel Johnson at right back. Aaron Mon steps in. And I like Jake Arman, Afram Taco in the middle of the field. They've been able to kind of gel everything together between the front 4.
Charlotte looking for their first win under that new man, and Jorge Herrera starts on the bench tonight. And a guy, Devin, who's above that 60-goal mark if he does come off the bench and score, ties Dan Kelly most prolific all time.
You believe that? I mean, those are big names, massive, massive names. It'll be interesting to see Chandler Hoffman's going to get his chance to hit the 60 mark against his old squad against Louisville City FC later on today.
Charlotte in the white kits. It's blue and green with white shoulders for St. Louis. What a start for St. Louis Football Club. Charlotte looking to get back on the winning side of the ledger. Underway on this Saturday in the USL Championship. St. Louis Football Club at home against the Charlotte Independents. Charlotte's side that moves Mike Jeffries into the front office, the 4-year head coach of the franchise. Brings Jim McGinnis in, who spent the last year in China, but before that was Celtics U20 coach. Back to Brandon Miller. Now Gutman. I want to talk about one of the stories of the draft and of homegrown players and of young players over the course of the last 6 months. You don't get very far without mentioning what happened with Gutman when he left Indiana.
He's at the top of the list, isn't he? First his process going through with the Chicago Fire and that not coming to fruition, ending up going overseas. A possible loan move to Nashville that's been axed by the league because of their, we'll say, existence in the future with the MLS, and he ends up with the Charlotte Independents. But you know, how about the counterbalance you now have on the left and right? He on the left, Joel Johnson on the right once he gets back from international duty, and just the ability to immediately get games. He's got to be happy that he signed his contract overseas with Celtic, a fantastic and storied football club, but at the same point in time, you don't want to sit. You know, you want to get regular reps, and Jim McGinnis is going to give him an opportunity in this system to continue to develop and grow.
Mond upfield. There's Gutman, Mac Herman Trophy winner in Indiana a year ago. Rivas, and first touch of the ball here for St. Louis. Those 2 minutes of very substandard defensive possession for a Charlotte team that's looking for the opening. Tonight's keys to the match presented by Westport Social. Devin.
For St. Louis, someone's in or out of the starting 11. Next man up gets an opportunity to show Anthony Pulis why you deserve to be in that starting squad and stay the course. You know, you haven't really done anything wrong so far. You have to find a way to continue to do all the things right that you've done. A lot of hype surrounding the club, but just go about your business. For Charlotte Independents, it's precision in the final third. St. Louis does not make a lot of mistakes on the defensive side of things, so you may not get a lot of looks. When an opportunity presents itself, so you have to step up because they're going to be few and far between today.
Gutman shoved off the ball by Calvert. Charlotte a chance to start the other way. And Sally. Arman lost it, spun to ground, but Charlotte continues upfield. Taku for Mansali. Taku over the ball, Sam Fink stuck in.
Interesting that Anthony Pulis has actually put Joaquin Rivas on the right side. first match, first Indy 11, came on as a substitute, and they played him over there. But when he got his first start in the Nashville game, actually played on the left-hand side of things. Russell Cincerotti was his attacking counterpart on the other side of the pitch, but they're going to let Kadeem Dakers run on the left. So switching those two up, that'll be a fun battle because Rivas is now going head-to-head with Andrew Gutman on the left side and Mansali. There's a lot of pace between those three boys.
Blowing by Martinez. Bradley Camden-Feo. Continuing still. Has runners coming. Fires it across. Header is in. Kyle Gregg. Finally, the much-awaited goal in the run of play. St. Louis leads in the 5th. And a St. Louis FC goal delivered by Domino's.
We gave a lot of credit to the outside backs of the Charlotte Independents. But St. Louis tugs the reins a bit here and says, hey boys, how about us? We're no slouch. Camden-Feo on the outside averts the first tackle and just gets to the byline. And this is one of those old ones where with the weather and all the conditions that are coming in, you just put it in, let someone go get it. Kyle Gregg, a moment of individual brilliance as this thing is pinged across the box and he just redirects it into the corner. Nothing Brandon Miller can do about that.
Career goal number 36 in the USL Championship for Kyle Gregg, and the smoke is usually much more poignant, but in today's wet conditions, I think the Luligans are having a little trouble getting that smoke up. Gregg's first of the season, and I don't mean it in a negative way, Devin, but he could be such a poacher. It's not that he's going to dribble through 6 guys and land on the doorstep with some cheeky finish. Kyle Gregg gets the hard-fought goals.
It's funny, there's plenty of players, if you ask anybody on the field, that they've come across over their careers. There's just some guys who have the knack for it. They find a way to hit the back of the net. And to be honest, at the end of the day, yeah, highlight reels are great, but does it really matter? Because the analytics are still the same. If you've got 10 goals, you've got 10 goals. And he just finds a way to continuously produce. He gets his breakthrough now in 2019. They've been waiting for that one.
You had the knack.
Yeah. Just had to run about 90 yards to get there.
Enzo Martinez returning after a 1-year stint in Colorado. Take the free kick for Charlotte. Driving, and it's poked over by Fenelson. Well, you have to be careful with Enzo. He's as good striking the ball toward the net as he is trying to find someone open on the set piece.
Very clever by Enzo Martinez, and Jake gets caught cheating a little bit here. Thinks this ball is going to be whipped in. You'll see when he steps back, has to just push it over the bar. Smart on the goalkeeping side of things.
Where am I looking at to?
Martinez steered aside, further by Dakers.
Gotcha.
Alex Martinez. Enzo, heavy touch. All the way back to Miller. There's G upfield. Off the head of Gregg. Turned over to Gutman. Alex Martinez goes to ground. Lewis Hilton, the foul. Charlotte, another chance. Try and whip a ball in. And this is where maybe you want a different look if you do go long.
Keep him second guessing for sure. Anthony Pulis has told us that it's one area of concern for his team.
Enzo Martinez striking for goal.
Set pieces seem to be an area that they're focusing on in training, especially because they have the regular schedule right now. No midweek games for these teams. Here's another look, and that's just smart on Enzo. Sees Fenelson cheating off his line a bit, and the goalkeeper anticipating this ball to be whipped in, and Enzo goes for goal. Well done by the keeper to track back. Smart by the attacker to have a go.
Calvert. Gregg, ball slowly moving toward him. Levels it off, the dummy setting up the shot from a bend. Still saying that ball had been kicked away from his foot. Tonight's injury report presented by Proactive Chiropractic. Sean Reynolds is out with an ankle injury. That's still a few weeks away. Charlotte, clean bill of health at present.
Fortunate for them, and one who's still making his way back into training, Oscar Umar. Anthony Pulis telling us that he's gotten a lot better from last match, but still not full fitness at this point in time.
Duro crossing, that's too strong over Mensali. Gutman, Arman. Sally pressuring. Stays with the Independents. Quick throw. Martinez in a pocket. Martinez after Arman stepped in. And a nice touch by G. Enzo launched across Mensali. Headed over Oduro. And maybe St. Louis can get out. They won't be able to as Calvert trying to put his head to it. And Gregg. We keep hearing from Anthony Pulis every time we talk to him. The first line of defense is Kyle Gregg. He keeps Charlotte from recycling that ball upfield.
About 30 seconds prior, Caleb Calvert had trapped back as well, and great tackle on Enzo Martinez before Paris G gave it away. But they are beyond impressive on the defensive side of things. They were just a team last year, we mentioned it, didn't have enough go in the final third, and their numbers were definitely cause for concern. Got better as the year went on.
And Sally, nice first touch. And Martinez will drive this wide.
It is different, though. They've moved from the west to the east, and you have to play, I'll say they had to play, we'll put it that way. They had to play catch up a bit more in the Western Conference. When you looked at the offensive firepower, you had teams like Reno, Orange County, Phoenix. There's a big difference between what they were putting forth offensively compared to St. Louis FC, Tulsa, and I'm obviously referencing 2018 teams. But most people will tell you, Anthony Pulis agreed that
Calvert, oh, that's too easy for Miller.
He feels the Eastern Conference is a better conference. We're not going to get into that at this point in time. I know better than this one.
Oh, come on, let's do it.
But the teams are different. Structurally, they are more defensive-minded. You see them put the ball down a little bit more, and the games are a bit withheld. The Western Conference seems to be a bit more wide open when they play, so that definitely bodes well for St. Louis on the switch.
You and I have spoken to coaches over the course of the first month of the season, and Anthony Pulis referred to having to scrap in games. There's another coach that described it as if you aren't prepared to fight, you're going to get run over in the first few minutes of an Eastern Conference game. Gutman trying to latch on. That ball hung up, and Kavita drives away. There are no gimmies in the Eastern Conference.
Definitely not. And even when you take a look at some of the we call them the MLS 2 teams. You know, we take a look at Bethlehem Steel, New York Red Bull 2. Those guys, they're difficult because they can play you like a cup final game, and they can also have a bunch of 17-year-olds show up and you run them off the park for 3-0. So it's difficult when you play them because you never really know what you're getting. Also, you don't know what guys from the MLS squads may be on loan that week. So the talent level can be so drastically different with those squads when you play them.
The West 2 years ago, St. Louis has oscillated between the conferences in years past. It was Seattle, LA, Vancouver, and Portland, the bottom four in the USL Championship. They were a combined 107 below zero on the goal differential.
Ooh. That's a nice little nugget you picked up there. Well done. That's a good one.
Kept that in the back pocket.
Not bad, not bad.
That's my statistical red card.
Oh, boy.
Enzo Martinez. St. Louis has a much stiffer test this year. So far, they've passed it with flying colors. Slid away by Fink. Gutman. Charlotte's been building over the last 5 minutes away from Martinez. I looked at the first 4 games of St. Louis's schedule and I thought, oof, murderer's row.
How about now?
No,
they've managed it quite well. And
Indy 11 at Nashville, home against Tampa Bay, and now home against a Charlotte team that I think most would say will be back in the playoff mix this year.
Especially the first 2 games.
Yeah.
Coming into this season, Nashville and Indy 11, 2 of the teams probably talked about the most with the offensive firepower that had come in the offseason. And neither one of those squads really getting it going. Nashville struggling a bit more than Indy 11 has. But Martin Rennie has told us that he has an idea and a much better view of the league of where they need to be.
Well, Martinez is shouting back, and that's a heavy challenge from Armin.
He's not happy, is he? Just coming across the middle is St. Louis trying to find a way to progress out of their own defensive third. Armin going, he's got a case, doesn't he? He comes across, it's not a bad tackle, but you'll see that a lot more from the Independents. Defensively, they'll press much higher.
Rivas, that'll hold up on this slow-moving turf today. Lobbed across by Hilton, and Miller will snag that. As Kyle Gregg backs away, I should note I undersold his achievement. His 5th-minute goal was actually goal number 48 of his USL Championship career.
Oh boy.
For some reason, I didn't bother to count 13 or 12 of those, but
they didn't tell you needed a mathematics course mixed in there with your broadcasting background.
Tico. Roberts. Mond. Aaron Mond will step forward. U.S. and Trinidad Youth World Cup participant. U-17s with Trinidad, U-20 with the United States. I'll sit here, back to St. Louis, free kick upcoming. Fink. Well, maybe there's a little room out here for G, winding it back across the 6. That's where things get hectic for Charlotte. If you want to press, you have to do it right or you're in real trouble.
Constant communication. You make yourself vulnerable, especially at the outside back positions. That was a good look. Andrew Gutman had pushed high to try and stymie them down in the corner. When the ball gets lofted over his head, he didn't have the correct coverage. He had to wait for Tico to step over, make the tackle on Paris G.
Rivas through, Calvert in the byline. Deflects back, Rivas wasn't able to pull that through. Roberts made things a bit more difficult. That's a nice turn by Oduro. And away from Enzo Martinez. And he may draw the referee's ire for that.
Just some frustration by Enzo. Frustrated with himself personally, but also the elements. It's not the first or last time you're going to see that out of a couple players. Very, very difficult. Felt like he maybe should have had that to his feet directly. Don't necessarily blame him. But immediately you can see with the Independents playing a high line, very difficult for St. Louis to play out of the back, something they've become accustomed to under Anthony Pulis. They like to systematically work their way up the pitch. But again, they've developed that ability to stretch the field like we saw with Joaquin Rivas and that long ball and overlapping run with Paris G. It's going to be hard to play out of the back today with the water sitting on the field, slows the game down heavily.
You know, when he slapped the USL Championship sign, the first thing that hit me was that Notre Dame play like a champion sign. Trying to find the good here. You spoke with Enzo this week, and in talking with him, and you and I discussing sort of the contents of that conversation, we spoke with Dave Dixon as well from Charlotte's coaching staff. Dixon brought up Red Bull Leipzig as a team that they look at. Enzo had an interesting comparison to how they focus on their pressure men. Sally was offside.
Well, combining that with his role as well, I think that's the biggest thing in understanding what his role is going to play and the pressure that they apply. It's much more disruptive and forcing frustration and distractions from the other team. You're not necessarily taking your system and saying, here's what we're going to try and do to you, and we're going to move the ball this way. It's more like making them react because you're going to push your pressure so high and you're causing so much frustration on the defensive side of things. They're not allowing another team to breathe. Dave said that his role hasn't really dramatically changed, and they don't want it to.
G laying off. Hilton kept alive for Dakers. Well, we've seen great chips this week here in the States. Dakers sort of flicked his foot at it.
Brandon Miller got caught watching a bit here, doesn't he? Just kind of watches it sail over the bar. So many deflections in the opening games this year, and this was just a tackle, to be honest. Two guys right at the top of the 18. Brandon Miller just watches it sail up over the bar. And the Independents, they're going to have to slowly find their bearings. They're another team that new system, so many new players.
Enzo Martinez from Odoro. Chips it out wide. Alex Martinez. Camden Feo, an assist earlier in the game on defense, and it's right at Fenlison. Ahead for Calvert. Select is the official ball supplier of the USL Championship and many of the finest leagues in the world. Since 1947, Select has been the leader in soccer ball quality and innovation. For the latest Select products and special offers, visit selectsportamerica.com.
Good touch. Well done. Took that with his instep as well.
It's not all bad when it rains and pours. Bits of skill here. The attendance has been great over the first couple weeks at home. But this rain has kept some of the population at home, watching on ESPN Plus as it might be.
The Luligans are down the street at Schlafly, hanging out, grabbing an adult water.
That commercial earlier.
It's not too early in the day.
No.
May not be 5 o'clock, but it's afternoon. It's good in my book.
St. Louis has taken 7 of 9 possible points through a very difficult opening 3-game slate. Charlotte, a team that's only picked up 1 point through 2 games, had a bye week already. Group that returned half a dozen. Made a change in philosophy with a new coaching staff. Fenlison, that's on point. A little infighting, and Dakers is held off the ball by Mond.
Aaron Mond might have gotten away with one here. The ball by Fenlison is an absolute dime that he just puts into the running path of Kadeem Dakers. Aaron Mond just shifted his body. Remember, he's a center back, so very much used to having to position himself appropriately when challenging defenders. Doesn't always get into foot races with them.
Ball does sneak through here. Greg looking at the back post and won't find Calvert. Headed out by Roberts. Corner ahead for St. Louis. And as we've spoken about extensively, they've been phenomenal on set pieces, something that Charlotte was focused on all week.
Lewis Hilton's going to get some help with Rivas out in the corner, and this gives St. Louis the ability to bring up those big guys. Remember, Fanuel Cavina got a goal week 1 versus Indy 11. Sam Fink got the goal last week. Unfortunately, they tied, but still good stuff from the center backs in the early goings.
Aimed for a bend. The bend gets taken out on the backside. He'll hop up. We should mention wishing well to his family, his father passing away recently. He's been in and out of the country, going home to Israel, and I hope the whole Abend family find some solace in this time, and wish them all the best. It's been a real tough go for Guy Abend trying to make all this work logistically.
It's easy for us to sit here and critique players' performances when you don't know what's going on in the background, like you referenced. And Anthony Pulis told us, look, the guy's been through the ringer. No easy way to say it. Between his father and then traveling back and forth to Israel, wasn't getting a lot of training in, and then Oscar Umar gets hurt, you just kind of get thrown into the deep end. So knowing all of that, yeah, he had a great performance. But now he's got a week of training underneath him, and see what he can counter Lewis Hilton with. Because Oscar Umar has been great for Hilton in the first couple matches. What can Guy Abend bring to it now?
Should note, fans in Louisville and Reno would say the best is yet to come. That'll get away out of play for a Brandon Miller goal kick. Once upon a time, goalkeeper of the year for Bob Lilly in Rochester. 24 games, 13 shutouts back in 2015. The goalkeeper of the championship team that knocked off LA Galaxy 2 in the final. Hey fans, you can follow St. Louis, Charlotte, and the rest of the USL Championship all season long on ESPN Plus, home to the USL, MLS, UFC, and more. Join the over 2 million sports fans already discovered ESPN Plus and watch the championship live every week. Sign up today, ESPNplus.com. You and I have our eyes on some games later tonight. Oklahoma City Reno game looks pretty tasty.
I'd like to watch that one.
Martinez pulled down by Camden Fayewo. And reaching at the shin guard, Martinez.
The Eastern Conference, I like the Charleston Battery, North Carolina FC as well. Storied career of Mike Anhauser continues on. And a new one, Dave Sarakin, former interim national team manager for the United States men's national team and now head of NCFC. They've had a decent start as well. They'll look to continue their nice ride.
Martinez lofting all the way to Fenlison. New York taking down Memphis yesterday. It's been an up and down ride for Memphis thus far. Their expansion USL Championship season. Same can be said for Hartford. They take on Indy 11 tonight. They've sold over 18,000 tickets. That's going to be the highest attended home opener in Indy 11 history. Louisville's going to get a dose of the same weather that St. Louis is feeling right now. Chandler Hoffman, first time back in Louisville since leading that team in goals 2016. Mentioned North Carolina and Charleston Battery coming up tonight as well.
How about that one? Bethlehem Steel, Pittsburgh Riverhounds. That could be fun.
You think they remember last year?
Ooh. Not that long ago we saw that game go, did we? That was a fun playoff match.
Bethlehem knocking out Pittsburgh in penalties in their first ever home playoff game. And the Rowdies could continue their run atop the East if they can take down a Loudoun side. It's still figuring out the lay of the land in their expansion season. It may be momentary, but St. Louis with this result could go into the night leading the Eastern Conference. And at the half-hour mark, looking for another goal. Run all the way out.
St. Louis ball boy not exactly doing Brandon Miller, Andrew Gutman any favors there. 30 minutes in, you take a look at what you've seen so far, Mike. It's difficult because of the weather for sure. Things are slow to say the least. High press from Charlotte Independence for the first 20 minutes or so. They've definitely backed off in that area. And St. Louis, to be honest, is kind of following suit in the direction of the Charlotte Independence. They were the ones who were stretching the game and trying to push the tempo a bit on the offensive side of things. They're a bit more methodical now. It's a bit of posturing between the two teams.
We spoke with Dave Dixon because Jim McGinnis, the head coach for Charlotte, was overseas working on his coaching license and getting that updated. But he said if it becomes a methodical game for Charlotte, it's going to be a very long day.
Yeah, that's not what they want at all, is it?
No.
They find a way to stymie and disrupt other teams, and that's not just coming from the organization. That seems to be the message that his peers see from his coaching style as well. He looks to almost disrupt the game of sorts. May not be the prettiest at times, but it makes other teams chase and they react, and that's very difficult. A lot of teams go in with a game plan, and then when you constantly have to change it because of what's being thrown at you on the other side of the pitch, it's hard to react.
Vita started. Camden Fayewo finishes, knocking it upfield. Miller. Nearly intercepted by Dakers. Karam works out in the Independent's favor. Gutman and Sally. Breaks down, and now St. Louis spring forward.
That's a good look at the difference in games that Andrew Gutman is used to, by the way. That ball in college easily slips through the middle. Lewis Hilton, a seasoned pro, read that from a mile away, just steps up and starts to go the other way. And that's the progression that they're looking for out of Gutman. He's made a mistake now. Keep an eye on him playing those interior balls if he does it again. McGinnis is hoping no.
Gutman stepping forward and separating Paris G from the ball. Lewis Hilton comes to G. Three green shirts making a run forward. G pumped the brakes, hits the accelerator, and forced away by Tico.
Great defending. Just beyond smart. Paris G tried to hold up play and then realized everybody had already started their progression, so he goes one-on-one. And that's the communication. Gutman has already rotated around up the pitch. Steven Tico just tucks over on the left-hand side, ushers it over the end line. Very smart. It gives you an idea of how bad it is. The gentleman just picking up from our natural sounds there on the field. I need windshield wipers on my glasses.
Trying to sweep it through. Rivas couldn't continue. And that's a poor foul short of midfield. A bit unnecessary from Kyle Gregg. So Martinez will put it quickly back in play. Charlotte's been playing barn burners this year. They've left a lot of work till late in the game, coming off what can be determined as a disheartening 3-3 draw. Gutman leveling it off. Enzo Martinez stepping over Martinez. Deflection of Kavita. Gutman goes in. Stays with Charlotte still. Mansali. Bouncing ball, and Fenlison does really well not to let that skip up on him. Especially with Odoro, who's got a real nose for goal, approaching.
We haven't even given the nod to Fenlison so far and what he's been able to do over the past 18 months. Remember, started last year, Tomas Gomez was going to be the starting goalkeeper coming over from the Rochester Rhinos. He had that hip injury, had to go through surgery. Fenlison made a home for himself, and Gomez came back, won the job. That wasn't the case in preseason, was it? Anthony Pula is telling us that he's definitely earned the shirt. He'll be the one wearing the sweater on a regular basis, at least right now. And why not? He's been fantastic in their opening matches.
It's a sweater today, isn't it?
Much more than a sweater in this weather. This is where you always feel bad for the kit managers at the end of the match. Everything's wet and gross, sweaty. It's fun as a player. See, it's always fun playing in this. You just don't like warming up in it.
Yeah, you used to play the youth circuit where you're doing your own laundry every night and ball across. Roberts, you told me you used to always clean them off and hang them up after every game. Am I off base?
My boots, for sure.
Okay.
Definitely not my kids. It was funny. I would come home, and if I didn't tell my mother, I mean, my schedule was so busy. If I didn't tell her, we're talking 11, 12, 13 years old, before I learned the word laundry.
Yeah.
Or as the English say it, laundry.
Yeah.
Before I learned how to do it. It was difficult. There's sometimes I would leave stuff in my bag, and my mom go, "Oh, what did you do?"
You're walking around with a hockey locker room in your bag. St. Louis into the attacking third, and an effort curled toward net by Dakers. Return to sender. G on the overlap. Ball fired across. Plenty of contact. Hugh Roberts trying to help up the man he just knocked to ground, Dakers. And then the foul from Camden Feo. When St. Louis drops into this block of seemingly 10, really it's referred to as a block of 8. Enzo Martinez is dipping 80 yards away from goal to get a touch.
That's the biggest issue they've had in their first 2 matches. Dave Dixon told us that we'd like him to explore. We want him to have the freedom to roam. But you don't want your 10, 25 yards from goal. That's just not conducive to a positive movement going forward. And he said, he'll get it. It's a system, but that's his frustration as an attacker. He wants the ball at his feet. Give him the ball, feed him more often. Everything they've gotten so far has come through him. The problem is there's such a heavyweight boxing match going back and forth. It's difficult to find his feet. He just needs to show a bit of patience and restraint.
Rivas, a bend. Camden Feo trying to serve. Comes to a band who snaps a header right to Miller. There's a little blood there apparently on the left knee. And Frim Taku has to come out. Guy who spent 7 years in the Albanian Superliga and comes to the States. Doesn't have such a bad existence. Goes to Tampa Bay and rolls into Charlotte.
Two pretty big hotbeds for soccer. Quality fan bases and some storied history behind the teams as well. They'll just dry that off and give him a new sock. Have a little fun. Again, it's about the kit man today. He's had some fuel to the fire with that laundry concern.
Well, the kit man's doing his work, and Jim McGinnis is adding something to the equation. Just trying to find a way to get that taped together. As it stands, Charlotte playing with 10, with Taku off the field. "40 minutes in the books. Charlotte off a 3-3 draw against Atlanta. All three of their goals last 15 minutes of the game. Taku returns. St. Louis a 1-1 draw against Tampa Bay. They were up 1-0 at home, and Anthony Pulis lamenting the fact that his side wasn't able to take all three. They felt like there was not a lot of creation from Tampa Bay. I would think he goes toward the dressing room now feeling the same way about how they've handled Charlotte.
Yeah, the Rowdies game came back to bite him, didn't it?
Camden Feo galloping over the ball. Ball reversal, Dakers, Gregg. And the late penalty by Guinzotti is very un-St. Louis-like. Concede 5-10 minutes to go in a game that they lead.
Pulis felt like the step from Steinberger was actually wrong of sorts. That he felt like that was the foul on Sam Fink before the penalty when he stuck his head in. And St. Louis needs to keep an eye on that too, because not a cause for concern now. It's happened once, but it's great to edge out these 1-2-1 victories, but it always leaves that level of doubt of, can you finish off a match?
Camden Feo. This will be a corner for St. Louis.
Do yourself a favor in situations like this. Go out, go get a second goal. Do it at the appropriate time. 2 is great in general, but do it right before halftime. Step on the opponent a little bit and pull them out of this game. Grab some of that momentum for yourself. The weather's not doing you any favors. They knock one over the end line. Go make the most of it.
St. Louis FC corner kick brought to you by Electro Savings. Out over Gregg. And the defensive header will result in a second look here for St. Louis FC. He said, "Bring me your huddled masses." Those huddled masses are underneath a little awning next to the goal. Corner bouncing all the way through, and Kavita nearly was able to poke that home.
Kavita almost gets on the end of this, and look where the first ball comes from. Sam Fink. There's a nice center back pairing. Again, Kavita got 1 goal. Sam Fink followed suit last week versus the Tampa Bay Rowdies. Like the service from Rivas as well. Nice to have another look. Lewis Hilton on his right foot. Joaquin Rivas on his left. Those off-season acquisitions, trying to get involved in the run of play.
You mentioned Kavita and Fink. I would not want to run to them in a dark alley.
No, those are 2 guys, especially the way that they work off of each other. Nice collaboration on the back line there. And We saw them used in a different manner last year, not the same this year. Both of them in the middle.
Well, there's got to be a card coming. Taku ripping back Dakers as he was approaching the 18-yard box. That is a clear yellow card. And I think if you're Taku, you're just fine with that. It's his second yellow of the year.
You'll see professional fouls like this 40, 50 yards from goal, but when you get turned and turn the ball over, first off, and he's out in space, loads of room to run, support around him, Calvert on his left. Had some guys drifting on the right side as well. Paris G making a late run. Sometimes you have to go to ground. He'll take a card, and yeah, not necessarily an effort you want to give away, but at the same point in time, they might hit the back of the net just before. The goalie's nightmare here. Brandon Miller. Have a chat with his boys in white and figure out how many he's going to put in this wall. Looks like he's going with 5. And St. Louis is going to stack it a bit with Kyle Gregg and Canafeo on the left side. So difficult. Lewis Hilton, Rivas over the top.
It will be Lewis Hilton. Hilton clearly wants that one back. You hear about Lewis Hilton, it's almost mythic when you hear Anthony Pulis describe him. The leadership qualities, the work ethic, the energy, and you've heard it throughout his career. Guy he saw playing for Charlotte back in 2016.
He thinks he's one of the most underrated players in the league, and shocked that he hasn't got a run at the next level, to be honest.
Stoppage time was presented by Paycor. Need more time in your business? Contact Paycor to handle your payroll and human resources need. There they go. They needed no more time. They leave with a 1-0 lead, and they try and get out of this rain, Devin. If you're St. Louis, you have to be pretty pleased.
Pretty pleased for sure. Became a bit predictable in the lull from 20 to 40, but amped things up again in the final 5 minutes. Charlotte Independence, it's going to be a long day. Just keep applying the pressure. Do it back and forth. Find a way to keep the opponent guessing, but stick to your big guns. You've done it so far.
So St. Louis holds a 1-0 lead. The rain continuing to pour. When we come back, we'll tell you about Shauna Brandt's passion for teaching and for the sport of soccer. 5th minute goal, Kyle Gregg. Familiar name, familiar lead. 1-0 St. Louis at the half.
The excitement that is sweeping the nation has arrived in St. Louis.
And a goal! It's Cicerone!
Fans are loving the authentic soccer experience. Tailgating, cheering, chanting, and much more. It's a party you won't want to miss.
Goal! St. Louis FC! And a goal! Manuel Cavita!
Get your tickets at stlouisfc.com.
Boy.
Junior programs, basically, there's 2 sides of it. There's a rec side and there's a select side. And basically, it's for ages 2 to 12.
So you start off by doing a little bit of a warm-up.
It's a developmental, kind of want to introduce the players to the game and kind of all in a fun environment and create a positive experience.
Our staff is first class, our facilities first class, and it's really a first class program.
It's halftime between the Charlotte Independence and St. Louis Football Club in Fenton, Missouri, as rain continues to fall. If there's one common attribute shared by St. Louis Scott Gallagher coaching staff, it's passion. Passion for the sport and a passion for teaching. As you'll see in tonight's Behind the Shield report, Shauna Brandt's passion has become contagious, and her players are catching on.
Started playing soccer, I was probably about 6 years old. Played rec soccer for a couple years. Then worked my way into club soccer at about age 8 and kept going from there. Club I initially started playing with was NSA, Naperville Soccer Association. Played with them for many years, starting at age 8 all the way through about my freshman year in high school. Won a regional championship with them and had some success with them, and then I started playing with some older kids as I started to get a little bit more serious. After that, collegiately, I took my game to Indiana University, where I played there for 4 years. Proud Hoosier, and that's kind of my playing career.
First two!
Oh.
Do it again, Abby, do it again!
From various different coaching ventures in the past, I had known Ralph Richards, I had known Sterling Westcott, and so we'd worked together with ODP, Region 2 ODP, in the past. And I guess they caught wind that I had moved to town, and they called me up one day and said, hey, we'd love to have you come out and you know, show you around and see what it's about, and maybe see about you taking a team. And so came out and checked everything out, talked with the guys, and it seemed like it was going to be a really good fit. It's what I know, it's what I love, it's what I'm passionate about.
Come on! Can't bounce, girls.
Some of the most satisfying aspects for me are, you know, just when the girls work so hard and then they're rewarded by their efforts, you know, with a result on the field. And you can just see the satisfaction and the joy and knowing in their faces and in their hearts that they earned that moment. They earned the right to feel that in that given moment. And that's a special feeling to me.
Open your body, now your hips are facing forward already. You're taking an extra touch.
St. Louis Scott Gallagher is one of the best clubs in the country, and it is very unique and different in a lot of ways. First and foremost, the thing that comes to my mind is just the facility that we have, the place that we call home. The Worldwide Technology Park is just unbelievable to what we have available to us as far as training goes, and the game atmosphere, and you know, from the lights, from the quality of the fields to the concessions and the stadium, and all of that. Most kids around the country have no idea that, you know, something like that exists at a youth club here in America. It really is a special thing. That's incredibly unique and incredibly special, and it's an honor to be a part of it. I am Shauna Brandt, and I am a soccer coach here at St. Louis Scott Gallagher with the Premier Program, and also the ECNL Administrator.
And last night's score of the opener in USL League One, Tormenta from South Georgia knocking off John Hark's Greenville Triumph 1-0, 72nd minute goal from Alex Morel. With Devin Kerr, Mike Watts 1-0 here. St. Louis over Charlotte Independence with the rain falling. Let's take a look, Devin, at the scoreboard around the league. And the New York Red Bulls 2 knocking off Memphis, and their season continues to be a bit of a struggle.
Very up and down. A couple injuries in and out, guys on international duty. They'll find their way. Tim Mulqueen, nice guy, nice chatting with him. Think he has a good structure in place. Always difficult to travel on the road in this league. And how about some of the games around today? Chandler Hoffman, we referenced, going back to Louisville City FC as he gets a go as his old squad. Pittsburgh Riverhounds look for a bit of revenge for Bethlehem Steel FC and Brendan Burke's boys. The Rowdies look to continue their unbeaten run in a fun one. Charleston Battery going to North Carolina FC. What can happen there? We shall see.
Let's take a look at some news and notes from around the USL Championship. Well, of course, League One begins. 4-game weekend slate. You can go to USLLeague1.com, see the whole schedule, how to watch on ESPN+. Cam Iwasa, hat trick in 11 minutes. He is re-energized, might be the word. He has come in on fire.
He's quality, and if they can get the pieces around him to stay constant over the course of the season, Simon Elliott's squad, they're always there. But are they necessarily a determining factor? Maybe he can be that push to the next level. Tulsa Roughnecks. Man, I love this. Striking oil. Once again, reign supreme. 2-1 victory last night. RGV had a late push, but they, at least for a couple minutes until the other teams play tonight, will continue to enjoy their sit atop the Western Conference.
Well, the flags are waving. The rain is pouring. Maybe it'll go away, but certainly not yet. It's St. Louis 1, Charlotte 0. Highlights, stats, and the second half right around the bend.
A year ago, local soccer fans had a chance to celebrate.
And for the first time in club history, St. Louis FC are into the postseason.
Tickets for St. Louis FC on sale now. You can be a part of the action.
And might that just be the goal that sends St. Louis FC into the Western Conference playoffs?
There's season tickets, single game, group, and flex tickets. Something for everyone with St. Louis FC. Support your local team. stlouisfc.com.
The excitement that is sweeping the nation has arrived in St. Louis.
Put that in a goal! It's Cicerone!
Fans are loving the authentic soccer experience. Tailgating, cheering, chanting, and much more. It's a party you won't want to miss.
Goal! St. Louis FC! Hit a goal! Manuel Cavita!
Get your tickets at stlouisfc.com.
Second half just moments away. The Luligans are off, well, refilling and, of course, trying to get out of the rain for a moment. St. Louis FC 1, Charlotte Independence 0. With Devin Kerr, Mike Watts, let's take a look at our first half highlights from this affair. And great highlight to start if you're St. Louis.
Saw some high tempo from the visiting squad, but immediately the home squad said, you know what, why don't you let us get out in front for once instead of playing chase like they've had to do over their past couple of games. Kenefeo on the left-hand side just whips one across the middle. And Kyle Gregg, you have to pay credit where it's due. Watch him as he holds his run up and then sits back, contorts himself, and nicks this down into the right corner off his head. That's his first one of the year. Not a bad way to open up your 2019 campaign. Enzo Martinez had a good look just a few moments later. This is in the 7th minute, and he sees Fenlison cheating off his line a bit. And instead of knocking this across the box, it tends to have a go. Well done by Jake to track back and push it up over the bar. St. Louis will continue to apply pressure. Couple half chances. This is the one with Dakers just on the left. Challenge right at the top of the box. 45th minute. Really felt like they were going to put something in the back of the net here. When you've got Lewis Hilton and Joaquin Rivas standing over the ball, those are two very dangerous men. Brandon Miller put up a 5-man wall. Hilton couldn't put it on a frame. But the home squad still got the 1-0 going into the dressing room.
Here are the halftime stats. If you're Charlotte, this is a team that's predicated on winning position on the field, being aggressive. They don't have anything to show for possession that largely was pretty basic and in the back.
They've struggled, but coming into this match, you should know that you're probably going to play chase the whole time.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to apply pressure up top. You're going to make Anthony Pulis' guys make a mistake. We talked about that coming into a match. They weren't going to do it for you. They don't give up a lot of mistakes on the defensive side of things. So Jim McGinnis will know that. He's going to speak to the likes Renzo Martinez, Oduro, and Salai, and Martinez. Can those four up top apply enough pressure so that your back line can start to push up and pin St. Louis in their own half? That's what they're going to try and do. It was intermittent in the first half. Need to find a way to be a bit more regular here in the second 45.
Kyle Gregg, the main talisman, he was called a year ago up front, but is hard a worker defensively as he is offensively. He scores in the 5th minute, the 28-year-old, with the goal that puts St. Louis out in front. As the rain has settled a bit, everybody's nice and warm from the dressing room. You didn't wear gloves often when you were playing, did you?
It's funny how the transition that I made when I was young, I always wore long sleeves and no gloves. And then as I got older, no more long sleeves, gloves only.
I only broadcast in jacket and gloves.
Oh, yeah?
No.
No undershirt. What a picture.
Well, can the Martinez brothers get Charlotte back on track here? They really didn't force St. Louis to be all that uncomfortable in a way that put them in a dangerous predicament. They were really able to just knock the ball the other way and resettle into that block. St. Louis starts with the ball in this second half, right to left in green, blue, and white, as Charlotte in white moves left to right.
And when you look at the metrics of the first 4 matches for St. Louis FC, outside of the Rowdies game, they've succeeded possession in every match, but they've been efficient in their movements going forward and coming back. And it's a bit different than the look that we saw last year. Last year they wanted to knock the ball around a bit more, but you saw a lot of side to side, didn't necessarily see things going quickly up the field. And Anthony Pulis said that we're going to change things up. We'd like to dictate our tempo to teams a bit differently this year and make them react to us as opposed to what we were doing in 2018.
Throw ahead for Mond. Armin just got under Gregg. Gutman from Hinsdale, Illinois, Chicago Fire youth. Across to Roberts. Martinez back up the line. Alex Martinez. Enzo charging on. Ball pop up a bit. Alex Martinez, Enzo Martinez. Tried to swipe by Camden Feo. Corner coming. "17 goals, 5 assists back in 2017. That won him a contract with the Rapids. Played in Champions League and CONCACAF. Played often in MLS. Skied into the air, takes a tough hop on the turf. Alex Martinez driving forward. St. Louis will settle to clear the danger away.
Rivas just hits this and let his team reset, try and reestablish their ground as Charlotte Independents have done well. Only 3 minutes in, but you can see a bit more direct and quickly. They're moving the ball very fast. Quick 1-2 touches. They're trying to avoid the elements if possible. Very difficult to do based upon the conditions, but it's been impressive so far.
It's G knocking it upfield. Miller drives away. And last year, so much of Charlotte predicated on possession and left to right. It's a horizontal game and take advantage of overloads and catching teams a little winded at the back end of a possession. And Charlotte wants to be more vertical this year. They want to be more direct. It's part of the game plan now.
It was boring. To be honest, it was boring. And not only was it boring, they didn't possess the personnel to have that quality in the final third where you could slowly move the ball left and right and wait for your chances. They needed to find a way to take it to the other squad, and it doesn't hurt that you bring Enzo Martinez back into the 11. He's obviously amazing in the final third and the distribution in general. But it was so slow, and we had seen this negative progression from them from a possession standpoint where things just slowly started to get slower and slower, and it was not impressive. To be fair, you could probably go back to the end of the 2017 season where they had that lull in play that then affected them at the Rochester Rhinos in their playoff run, and it just funneled into 2018.
Hilton. Camden Feo. Greg unable to trap that. Greg right back in the middle of it.
Why do you play that ball? And that's where you have to start to figure some things out. There's a big difference between being direct and being diluted, and there's just no reason to play that. Aaron Mon coming out of the back. Had the run from Alex Martinez on the right. Sometimes it's okay. Play that 5-10 yard ball and just get it back, start over, go the other way.
Odoro. Knock back toward Enzo Martinez. Recovered by St. Louis. Herman trying to strip it away from Gaia Bend. Bend surrounded, plays out of it. Greg. I thought St. Louis's tweet was right on the money. Their game plan for the second half.
Keep winning. Well done. You have to respect the guys who are in charge of the PR accounts around here, the social media. They do so well for themselves.
Kelsey Steele, the off the post from last week about the latest, greatest Twitter feud. Oklahoma City and Tulsa. One could say they struck black gold with that.
See what you did there. Well done.
Notably, Copa Tejas.
Yeah.
Is continuing tonight with San Antonio and a sellout in Austin.
That's been a fun one that they've instituted this year between all the clubs. So if you're McGinnis, you have to be a bit concerned that Dominic Odoro has not been able to touch the ball more as he comes into our screen now and you get a better look, but they have to find a way. It's been all Enzo Martinez. I get it. He's the lone gunman up top running around by himself and trying to be that last line of offense, first line of defense, and you want to stretch the back line, but he's too talented offensively to not get him the ball more regularly. Week one, they go down to Indy. They fought back brilliantly, just came a bit short, but Odoro got the goal, came on as a substitute, and then last week, same thing. He got involved in the run of play.
Enzo Martinez steering wide, cutting back onto his left. Curls that over the crossbar. Camden Feo circling around.
Interesting how he gets under this a bit too to put it up over and kind of slicing and dicing his way. Well done. He knew Feo would bite on that. Had it on his right, brought it back on his left, and the way his body was sitting after the turn, he's just sitting back on it.
The fact Camden Feo had curled in, Oduro went wide. Is that what you want to see from your outside back when Enzo rotates like that?
What you want to see from your outside back?
You have him coming in underneath.
You have to watch the progression because we just talked about Oduro not being involved in the run. You want your outside back to follow Oduro, but also the structure defensively, you have to be careful because if you rotate too much, you've now opened up the center part of your defense and you've become susceptible for Enzo to just continue his own run. So they had enough coverage in that situation where you could follow. If other times you're going to have to wait because Enzo, and we've seen him do it in the past, he cuts it from his right to his left. You make the mistake and follow out. Now he's in one-on-one in space. That is a matchup that Charlotte Independence would take all day.
There's Camden Feo. By Fenlison. Calvert in pursuit. Mond.
Surprised they didn't call the first one on Aaron Mond. Funny how that always works out. You get a little knock, and when you circle back around for a bit of retribution, the referee sees the retaliation. Don't be surprised here with St. Louis FC if they end up making a change, probably 65th minute or so, somewhere between 60 and 70, probably on the latter portion of that. The guys up top have had to do a boatload of work chasing, and you've got some reinforcements on the bench that you could come in, bring up some new energy, and maybe grab a second goal. Charlotte Independence won't move. Not up top anyway. They'll keep Enzo and Oduro at least for the time being, but Father Time sitting patiently on the bench, and Jorge Herrera, sure he'd love to get involved in this match.
There's two men, Sally. Armin. Mond. Cross back post. He's looking for Mensali, who came all the way. And now it's blasted across and high. We haven't had many iffy moments thus far, but Goodman was looking for what would have been a spectacular second pro goal.
Better progression from the Independents. Ball to the back post, and that was just a half effort. If you're going to get it, why not put it on that young man's left foot? He's fun to watch, isn't he?
You saw him at Indiana working a game for ESPN. I'm sure you saw elements of what everyone else saw. What was your takeaway watching him in college and now watching him in his third pro game?
There's a couple things. One, it's a different level now. It's no different. We'll Americanize this, we'll call it. It's no different than guys you see at the collegiate level from American football coming in and having to make that progression. Here's a substitution. Bringing on the outside. Cicerone stepping in, Kadeem Dakers. His day is done. Anthony Pulis has been quite happy with Russell Cicerone. Sam Fink telling us that this is the guy he's actually been most impressed with.
Substitution brought to you by Cigna.
Going back to Andrew Gutman, it's another level. The consistency of your own play has to be better, because he was just in a situation where Todd Yeagley had a beast of a team, always does at Indiana, and there are so many components around him where you've got one player that's better than a lot of guys on the pitch, and then the next thing you know, you've got 8, 9, 10 players. Your whole squad is better. So it was much easier for him to get away with things at that level. He could beat guys individually more. It's going to have to be something special now, both with St. Louis FC and when he eventually gets his reps at Celtic, to really challenge players. He's going to have to understand systems, and there are going to be times he can't make that run every single time. It is a system, and with Jim McGinnis, they want you to press, but he also needs to pull back a bit because he has to show restraint. Other teams will figure out what you're doing, and they'll counterpunch, and they'll leave you out to dry.
Tico. Scootman. Tico lost it. With St. Louis, they took their lead in the 5th minute. Kyle Gregg nearing the half-century mark in USL Championship goals. His first goal of the season. So Martinez dips to ground. Armin. Comes Gutman. Finally a little bit of room for him to explore. Mansali trying to return. Full pirouette. Gutman dragging it back for Oduro. Gaia Ben's hands are up. It will be a corner. Changes are coming for Charlotte in a moment. Martinez, header away from Roberts. Tico, Martinez, recycled ball, driven and caught by Fenlison. Above head height with some real blistering pace.
Enzo Martinez showing some individual brilliance as this ball cycles back around. A touch, quick look up. Is he off his line? Not really, but still hit with pace and some quality spin on the ball that'll challenge Jake Fenlison even a tiny bit.
Gregg. Dunking backwards. Enzo Martinez, awesome bit of skill. Armin, that flag has to be up. It is. Against Dominic Oduro.
Substitution for Charlotte, leading the game number 26.
Enzo, come on, this is filthy, man.
He's been fun in the past few minutes, hasn't he? Nice little back heel. That's so good. In the rain, ball running away from you. You're changing direction on your own, just a quick little touch.
Joel Johnson checks in. Mark Hill checks in. Substitutions brought to you by Cigna.
Jim McGinnis going to save this last substitution. Most likely will be an attacker later on, but with Roberts stepping out, Aaron Mond will slide in next to Tico, and now they'll have some of that balance we referenced in the outside back position. Joel Johnson coming back from the Liberian men's national team, got some reps this weekend, so maybe not necessarily fully fit for a full 90, but a good opportunity for them to explore the width a bit more now. Not all of it will have to be on Gutman.
St. Louis still has 2 substitutions remaining. You mentioned Liberia for Joel Johnson. Joaquin Rivas for St. Louis going to El Salvador and featuring against Jamaica and CONCACAF Nations League. 38 USL Championship players called up during the last international window. Alex Martinez. Tapped away by Hilton. Corner ahead for the Independents. They go short, and the brothers go to work. Alex for Enzo, driving this back across. Recovered by Alex Martinez, putting it onto his right. Curling a second cross through. Cicerone. And a heavy challenge from Joel Johnson, throwing his forearm into it. That's a yellow for dissent. And the patrons here at Augusta National are none too happy.
The Luligans getting involved, and Joel Johnson would have gotten away with this on his own. It's definitely a foul for sure, but he talked his way into matching the referee's shirt. That's a no-no. Still time to play, and you've got a guy who's come on, probably tired from the weekend's matches with his national team, and now he's sitting on a yellow. Another opportunity for St. Louis to go with someone.
Back to Brandon Miller. Joel Johnson, kind of player that detention slips were made for. Dequa will check in, and that's enough for Kyle Gregg. Substitution brought to you by Cigna. And in the 5th minute, Kyle Gregg changing the dynamic of this game. Anytime you take a lead and you can sit in a low block, well, changes everything to get it early.
He's someone who can catch fire, and they've been waiting for him to do that in the first few matches. Great progression down the left, just continuing to play on by the outside back. Kyle Gregg just took it to his heart, put it right over his shoulder. And he's someone who's a very streaky scorer, so if they can find him a bit more regularly, that'll be nice. Found the back of the net 13 times last year in all competitions. You've talked about him getting the opportunity to hit the half-century mark.
I'm willing to wager he'll find it at some point this year.
Better believe it for sure.
Turned over, Cicerone. Driving onward, Calvert pulled a little further away. Dequa making a run down the middle. Hilton going for goal, and he very much clears this wide of the post. Alex Martinez getting by Cicerone. Oduro, Johnson fresh into the game. And Mansali goes piling through. Really nailed Paris G. I don't think there's anything malicious to it.
It's his momentum as he jumps. Your arm's natural progression is to come up with you. And watch the way that it comes back down. Comes up, wins the challenge there. He's up to win it. To be fair, it's not his elbow. This is Paris G clearing the ball off the line. He hits him in the abdomen. So there's no wrongdoing by the Charlotte player in any way, shape, or form.
You've got one sub remaining. And Matt Boehner comes to mind, the defender that you bring on if Paris G's not able to continue. G out of the soccer hotbed of Simon Fraser University in Canada, British Columbia. Anthony Pulisalm at Tulsa. Referred to him as maybe a bit of a rough diamond. I think he's got a lot of upside, Paris G. There's no card, and he's asking whether he can go to the nearest point of the field to come off and be allowed back on, or if he has to go to the 4th official. He will have to be gestured back in by the referee. It's Laurent Varga today. Hilton blasting ahead.
Great ball.
Cicerone waiting. Camden Feo's arrived.
Camden Feo made a mess of this one. This ball by Lewis Hilton is picture perfect. Cicerone does well to allow that run overlapping. Lewis Hilton in his distribution, a couple games. We've talked about how good he is, but the first few matches, he's on another level right now.
Enzo Martinez trying to appeal for 6 seconds. Hilton trying to wave everybody back. Dequa's done a nice job, even in these few minutes, of coming back to the ball and being able to distribute a little bit more. He's a very different player than Kyle Gregg, isn't he?
The dynamicness of the top 3-4 has changed a bit because of it. It allows them to hold some possession, but his pace definitely bigger than Gregg's, and you'll see a lot of that down into the channels in the first few games. Anthony Pulis has done that, and it's been with Albert Dequa. Especially when you get Dequa and Kadeem Dakers on one side, those two interchanging, they are just greyhounds, can go all day. And then you have the clinical players like the Lewis Hiltons, like the Caleb Calverts, who can keep the ball at their feet a bit more. So it's nice to see him step back in and hold up play.
Mensali over Odoro. Johnson drives up for it. Jorge Herrera's moved toward the halfway line. It looks like he'll be the next move for Charlotte. Would be their final move. Alex Martinez run into Cicerone. Dev, I had some trivia for you, and I feel like if I don't do it now, I'm not going to be able to for a while.
14.
Mensali was seen at a U20 World Cup playing for Gambia by which former New England head coach?
Which former? That's where you throw the curve.
Yeah.
There's a couple.
The great Stevie Nickel.
Is it?
Yeah. Brought him over.
Wow.
There you go.
Okay. That's a good one.
Jorge Herrera has been seen by Charlotte fans for the better part of a decade, and he's 1 goal away from Dane Kelly, who is active in the league with Indy 11 for most in USL Championships history. Well, Johnson wants that ball back. Circling around, recovered by Armin. Turned over on Herrera's back pass. Rivas. Herrera. 8 years with the Charlotte Eagles, and then on to Charlotte Independence. Was the first signing for the Independents when coming into the league.
One of the best quotes from any manager that I've heard this season came from Jim McGinnis. I had just spoken to Enzo.
Can Dequa get to this? Miller will scoop it up.
We were talking about Jorge Herrera, and I said to Enzo, you know, isn't it crazy that he just keeps on going? He said, man, when I'm his age, they're a decade apart, by the way. When I'm his age, I hope to have a body that looks like that. The guy just keeps himself in pristine condition. When I relayed that quote on to Jim McGinnis, he just laughed and had this expletive grin, we'll say, on his face.
High arcing service toward Odoro. Not a great punch. Fennelson. And that's knocked up and over by Enzo Martinez.
I said, Jim, what's so funny? He said, Enzo's 28 now. He doesn't have Herrera's body. Still Enzo Martinez. He's the one who you can go to, isn't it? He may not have Jorge Herrera's body, 10 years as senior, but still, he's feeling it today. That's a second or third crack on goal. It's gone over the bar, though. Very uncharacteristic for Enzo to not at least put something on frame.
I think most people hope they age like Jorge Herrera. Truth be told, you and I were told, why does he stay so young? Last year, he's got a couple kids running around the house. Dequa, nice first touch. Dequa went for goal and lofted it well over Miller.
He's just not just a player. He plays, he coaches, he's a dad. He's led his Charlotte Christian School, the high school that he coaches at, 4-time state champions. Technical director of FCC Carolinas. The guy's all over the place. Man of many hats, you could say. And they're hoping one of those hats is finding the back of the net with just 15 plus to go.
These teams last met in 2017 when they were both in the East. Johnson over Herrera and too far for Oduro. That was a 5-1 St. Louis win on July 7th, 2017. I don't think we're going to see 6 goals in this game, but history, Devin, would tell you Charlotte oftentimes will give or take a goal in the final 20.
We showed some of this at the top of the broadcast, and all 5 goals this year have been after the 70th minute, 3 of them coming after the 83rd minute. So new system, new personnel, all of that has to find a way to make its impact a bit earlier on. This is their 3rd match of the season, and all 3 of them they've had to come from behind. They've only been able to do it once, and that was against Atlanta United 2, which ended up in that barn burner, 3-3 draw. Now just 15 minutes left in this match. You've seen some half chances from the Independents, but as of right now, St. Louis deservedly sitting out in front.
Alex Martinez has picked up a knock, and it's worth noting Charlotte's burned all 3 of their subs trying to get back into the game here. Saw Jorge Herrera there on the right side of your screen. He looks younger than me.
Mike. No comment.
Dequa, really great stuff. Rivas teeing this up off the crossbar. Well, that had potential to be really spectacular. And St. Louis will clean this up in the back. And a foul by Armin. Give us a chance to look at what Joaquin Rivas almost brought to the table.
Brandon Miller can breathe a sigh of relief as this comes down the field. When he cuts this back, it's going to be on frame because the space is now closed down for everybody else. He picks out that far post, oy, right off the woodwork. You better believe if the pitch isn't so wet, your foot probably doesn't dip that extra millimeter, which gets him underneath it and puts it off the woodwork. Trust me.
Okay.
Trust me. Been in this situation too many times.
Okay. I'm not saying I would have put it on goal and you wouldn't have. I'm just saying, you know.
If it's not raining, that ends up in the back of the net.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll go out to the training ground. We'll mess around with it.
Yeah.
You can play goalie.
Yeah.
We're going to
record
record
that straight
one.
on. Trust me, he'll score. Oh, Anthony Poulos that close to seeing his team 2-0 up. Enzo Martinez goes in, and everybody's worse for the wear. Dequa is still down. He's popped back up. Martinez slowly to his feet. Dequa looking across. Somehow that stayed out. Somehow Calvert didn't put that on goal. His momentum may be carrying him another way, but surely he thought that was going to be the second goal.
He got his first goal of 2019 against Nashville. Almost assuredly this would be 2, wouldn't it? Very difficult to do, though. Playing that number 9 spot as you're coming across to the top of the 6, ball's put behind you, then bring it back on near post. Brandon Miller was there, but with the pace and its location, proximity to goal, it should have ended up in the back of the net.
Well, Devin, the game's opened up a little bit, and St. Louis isn't afraid to try and strike quickly here and put Charlotte down. The longer they let this fester, the more likely that this could swing away from them. Enzo Martinez got a touch, edge of the area, trying to get to his feet. And Hilton clears as far as Johnson. Martinez, who picked up a knock earlier. Joel Johnson, back from international duty. Everybody's saying, how did that not deflect?
Yeah.
Enzo Martinez went all the way to the corner to take the corner kick.
Some gamesmanship by Enzo. Haven't seen that before, have we?
He's got to be the only player in USL Championship history to be sent off for a second yellow for celebrating with his shirt off. Anywho, at midfield, there's a lot of consternation here. It's only the diehards now. This is Jim McGinnis's kind of weather. 40 degrees, continued rain, and a stiff wind.
It's not the rain that's heavy and just dumping on you. It's just annoying rain that's just constantly there. That's quality Scottish weather. I'm sure our producer, Sharni, will appreciate the foreign accent.
I'm sure she doesn't.
I've been told otherwise, but I know she, at heart, she loves it.
Yeah. You know, anyone from Manchester, right? Recovered by Cicerone. Enzo Martinez trying to take a bend off the dribble. It's behind Gutman. Had the right idea. Gutman just couldn't change gears in time. Johnson. Give and go with Alex Martinez. Backline stepping forward for St. Louis. Armin will deflect. Rivas trying to take it away. And Dequa look down Tico. Choose to reverse. Dequa chases. Tico. Miller. Martinez galloping forward. Maduro a step further away from goal. Hill. It's a good step. Kaya Bend putting at the feet of Dequa. The Bend overrun by Alex Martinez. Herrera. Gutman's come forward. Herrera's there. Herrera goes down. No penalty. Varga instantly showing no and showing yellow to Herrera.
Wow. Interesting sequence of events with Jorge Herrera. And just 8 minutes to go on the clock. Gutman waited for him to come across. This is difficult. Fink goes to ground.
No,
No,
I don't
he
think
doesn't
he gets
get
it
him.
all.
No, he doesn't get it.
Matt Boehner set to come on.
Keep an eye on this storyline as well. Boehner in week 1 heavily struggled with the pace of Indy 11 and what Martin Rennie has put together out there. Paris G has been the factor on the defensive side of things that has been a constant since Boehner had that terrible outing. Now Boehner comes back in. Is Paris G hurt? We saw him go down. What's going to happen further? But with 7 minutes left on the clock, plenty of time for the Independents to try and get back in this match and go at him, because he really struggled with pace in that first game. And that's an area they will look to exploit.
Substitution is brought to you by Cigna. Calvert rubbing his temple. Charlotte's gotten the ball. That's a really well-struck diagonal. Oduro. Way by Kavita. Covered by Armin. A bend. Shifting over for Cicerone. Calvert's come back to his feet, gives a thumbs up to the bench. He's moving a bit gingerly. Enzo Martinez, Alex. Herrera. Gutman's coming. Odoro's moved wide. This struck by Hill. Knocked aside by Fenlison. Well, haven't heard much from Mark Hill. He's on loan from Celtic. There's a corner ahead for Charlotte. Ton of whip on this. Ball felt like it had orbit around the 18. Martinez serving again. Charlotte's certainly saving their best for last. Martinez on the overlap. Hill. Armin. There's an outstretched boot there from Mond. In the end, Kavita dives for the ball. Corner coming. Devin, you can say what you're thinking. I can see it in your eyes.
I want to make sure I don't rip the referee to total shreds here.
Martinez, edge of the area. That's a very late whistle, but it did come. And Enzo Martinez explaining that this is centimeters from the line. Anthony Poulos getting his word in here.
Watch this ball as it comes up. This is a foul. Armin knocks it back into the box. Famuel Kavita goes in. That's a foul. Aaron Mont sticking his boot right on his head. This goes the other direction 99.9% of the time. And instead, you've now got an extremely dangerous opportunity for an equalizer.
And it's whipped across. Gutman putting just about everything he had on that. Looking for a pinball deflection. Well, ball doesn't lie.
Karma did come back around here. Gutman just puts his laces on it, tries to put something on frame in the mixer, anything. It's low, it's hard, and Herrera can't get anything on it. Odoro on the back post. Still searching for answers with just 4 left on the clock.
Free kick, Charlotte. 88th minute. St. Louis picked up the lead in the 5th. Dequa in pursuit. Through for Cicerone. Precious time off the clock every time St. Louis gets on the ball. Oduro forward for Charlotte. Gutman poking it toward Fink. Alex Martinez rolls it right at Fenlison. Why has Charlotte been able to get through St. Louis and that low block more in this second half?
Not just more in the second half. They're a totally different team. Totally different team.
After the 70th?
After the 70th minute. They're showing it every single game. Communication's a big one there.
Cicerone still. Cicerone through. Cicerone. Great save. Slapped away Miller. Still alive. Dequa off of Johnson. That simply had to be the moment for St. Louis. Miller dead and buried out of his grave to knock that away.
We'll go back to the Independents and their offensive escapades in the second half in a second. Brandon Miller falls the first time, still manages to bring himself to his feet, get big, and make a secondary save here, and then the third one when it comes back around. That's exactly what you expect out of the former goalkeeper of the year in the USL.
And all those drills you see make a lot more sense now on the scramble. Cleared away from Miller. Lobbed back forward Camden Fayewo and caught by Miller as we enter the 90th minute.
A lot of this from the Independents has been more dangerous. You'll see a lot of interchanging play now. Damoduro rotates to the outside, then Martinez in behind him. You're allowing Andrew Gutman to get high up on the pitch. But on that progression, when that ball got knocked in, Gutman had actually tucked in a bit and allowed Duro to go to the line, and then they rotated back into with each other. So St. Louis having trouble tracking all the interchanging play by the Independents. You have to wonder, why doesn't it start sooner?
A bend, striking over the top. Bounding back, bouncing toward Miller. Cicerone, a cursory jog. Well, St. Louis could be the story of the championship alongside Tulsa in early days of the 2019 season. They can see this out. They lead the Eastern Conference with plenty of results still to come tonight in week number 4. Johnson has come taking it away from Dequa. 3 minutes of stoppage time presented by Paycor. Need more time in your business? Contact Paycor to handle your payroll and human resources needs. Hill trying to take advantage of Camden Fayewo, unable to hold on. Martinez will come right back to him, and he'll strike this over the crossbar. Well, that was hit on a wing and a prayer.
Seeing this team and what they've done over the past 6-7 minutes, the Charlotte Independents are one of the most dangerous squads with 15 minutes to go in a game. Now, if Jim McGinnis can get them to replicate that and stop bleeding goals early on, they have a formula that can win. The problem is it's just too inconsistent. It's going to take time, and with the likes of Enzo Martinez, Jorge Herrera, Damoduro, so much experience with those three up top. It's going to be a learning curve.
Dequa trying to take this away from Miller, who recovers and swipes it back towards the net. Woo, dangerous moment here for Charlotte. We're halfway through stoppage.
Tried to give it to him, didn't he? Brandon Miller. All the praise that we gave him on that save moments ago. Tried to give it to St. Louis FC.
Stumbling, bumbling right now. Johnson, Martinez. Is there another late heroic effort from Charlotte? Gutman, Hilton. If you're St. Louis, just have firm footing on this wet turf at minimum. Give yourself a chance. Martinez, it's not a good clearance. Fenlison had to make sure he stayed in the box. Slip sliding toward the edge of the 18. Maybe one more look for Charlotte. St. Louis can feel it now.
Let's go, FC!
And here comes the final Charlotte build. Odoro trying to get behind Kavita. Should be time here for Charlotte to get a throw. St. Louis side that believes in the process. Year number 2 under Anthony Pulis. Nearing a 3rd win in 4 matches. Knocked away, it's full time. 10 points from 4 games for St. Louis. What a fantastic start to the 2019 USL Championship slate for Anthony Pulis' men. They knock off Charlotte 1-0. Well, picture's worth 1,000 words. Wet day in St. Louis. And the green smoke making its way out again. Tonight's man of the match presented by Pleats Cleaner, Kyle Gregg. Today's man of the match selected by Devin and I, our broadcast crew. Follow St. Louis FC on Twitter to vote for the Pleats man of the match fan poll. You take a lead 5 minutes in, it changes the whole dynamic.
Kyle Gregg had to be, didn't it? No one else really stepped up and took control of this match. Kyle Gregg did it in the early moments in the game. He's got a bit of a hitch in his step there, so Anthony Pulis will get him into recovery. But once again, St. Louis FC just showing the charismaticness, just retain their pressure, to find ways to get gutsy, eke it out through the elements, deal with the Charlotte Independents coming in, late game dramatics. But it was always to be St. Louis FC with Anthony Pulis and the chemistry that they have built in 2019.
The excitement that is sweeping the nation has arrived in St. Louis.
A shot and a goal! It's Cicerone!
Fans are loving the authentic soccer experience. Tailgating, cheering, chanting, and much more. It's a party you won't want to miss.
Goal! St. Louis FC! And a goal! Manuel Kavita!
Get your tickets at stlouisfc.com.
Edward Jones presents today's final score. St. Louis FC 1, Charlotte Independents 0. Bullhorn is out. Sam Fink leading the troops as St. Louis comes away with a massive 1-0 win. Their 4-game unbeaten streak to start the season has them tops in the Eastern Conference. Mike Watson, Devin Kerr for the postgame, and St. Louis got all the offense they needed 4.5 minutes in.
Interesting from a philosophy standpoint how the rules of engagement have changed for Anthony Pulis in this club. Last year, it was so monotonous in their movements left and right, forward and back. You get a couple guys in the offseason that offensively can help you stretch the field. Kenefeo is one of them. He's an outside back, but he really provides that pressure. This time he knocks the one across. Kyle Gregg gets the opening goal 5 minutes in. Then they got a sparring partner of sorts, didn't they? Never truly threatening in the first half from Charlotte Independents. Enzo Martinez had a nice chance here. Just 2 minutes later, 7th minute, Jake Fenlison, Lewis Hilton continuously trying to get involved. This was the half chance by Dakers, and the home squad really had the better run of play for, once again, 75, 80 minutes. Then, like a switch, boom, things jump on, and it's almost as if they try and wear their opponents out. Tulsa has employed this a bit as well in their efforts with Michael Incian. Well, they'll sit back for 45 minutes. If the Independents can find a way to get involved outside of the closing 15 minutes, they have a chance. This is a half chance again. Enzo Martinez just clips it over the bar, and that was kind of how the day went for them. Just not necessarily firing on all cylinders when it came time. Everybody kind of have a half chance. This was the opportunity for Joaquin Rivas to put a bow on it. Great individual effort. Nice progression by St. Louis FC. Cuts it back. That upper 90 strike. Gutman had the free kick that we saw pound across the middle of the box. Jorge Herrera. Sam Fink 2 weeks in a row? No. Herrera with the dive. Gets the yellow card for simulation. And just all around, from Sam Fink, Jake Fenlison, Cicerone the substitute, everybody that stepped onto the pitch today has bought in to what Anthony Pulis is selling, and rightfully so. They're currently sitting atop the Eastern Conference.
Miller swiping this away after falling down. He was all over the ground in the final 5 minutes. Dequa off of Joel Johnson. Another chance for St. Louis to put this one away. In the end, they rely on their defense to carry the day. The statistics in the end look largely similar in what the final product amounted to. But, you know, St. Louis was willing to defend for much of the game, and in the second half they focused on their counter and had decent looks. You have to be happy if you're St. Louis. If you're Charlotte, you're wondering, how do we get those final 20 minutes over 90?
St. Louis, every game they played, better team. Except for Indy 11 week 1, and week 1 gets a pass. Charlotte Independence has been getting better. But the problem is that progression is in the final moments of a game. Notice the possession stat. Does it really matter if you carry 61% possession when most of it is side to side? No, it doesn't. So if they can get Oduro, Martinez, all of them on the same path on a regular basis, they'll be fine. Again, you're 3 matches into the 2019 season. I think there's no cause for concern just yet.
Fanuel Kavita says, may I have this dance? He and the Luligans are celebrating again. Edward Jones presenting today's final score. St. Louis 1, Charlotte 0. Rainy day. Our soaking wet crew, much appreciation for Director Gage Tisosin, Sharni Yerke, Jose Bueso, Devin Kerr alongside Mike Watts saying so long. Charlotte falls on the road. St. Louis 10 points out of 12 to start. Have a good night, folks.
This copyrighted telecast of the United Soccer League Championship cannot be retransmitted, rebroadcast, or reproduced without the expressed written consent of the United Soccer League Championship.